Hey, hello. My online handle is WeebHunter, and I'm here today because it is the 3-month anniversary of the Compassionate Intervention Act in Alberta. Basically, what that is it's an act that is trying to get addicts off the street and get them some help. Yeah, let's just read a little bit about it. So, addiction is an illness that, if left untreated, will worsen and can eventually lead to a person losing their ability to make good decisions for their health and well being. The Compassionate Intervention Act allows adult family members, guardians, healthcare professionals, police, or peace officers to request a treatment order for those whose addictions or substance use has made them a danger to themselves or others. Eligible Albertans will receive stabilization, assessment, treatment, and aftercare support. A multidisciplinary team will deliver comprehensive, tailored supports focused on addressing substance use and rebuilding aspects of life destroyed by addiction. The ultimate goal is to help people reclaim their lives and achieve better health and wellness. Recovery is not easy, but it is possible. That's very true. And yeah, that's very true. And you know, uh, definitely gonna do something here. Don't have to pause anymore, eh? Okay, gonna have some dead air. Alrighty. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, now you might be wondering, who am I to talk about this? Well, I'm a guy who grew up in group homes. Not a foster home, a group home. A foster home is with a family, a group home is with rotating staff and cameras. And then volunteered with the Children and Family Services, and that basically means that I've lived with and worked with high risk youth for a long time. As an adult, I went to school to be a frontline support worker with addictions. After working in that for a bit, I went to school to be an education assistant. And post COVID, I decided to work security because, well, I was kind of unsure about where my education and everything was going during COVID. So, yeah, I've been involved with this for a very long time, and I care about this issue greatly. Actually, during my time volunteering as a youth, I would travel around my province and ask youth about issues that mattered. We ended up putting on some youth forums, and a lot of the issues that mattered to youth were addictions and problems like that. So, yeah, I've been very passionate about this my whole life. Thanks. Moving on. And that's what brings me back to talking about this. Because as I said, this is now the 3-month anniversary as of today, August 15th, 2025, as it received royal assent in May 15th, 2025. And for those who don't know what royal assent means, that means it became law. So, let's read more. Alrighty. So, overview. So, the Compassionate Intervention Act allows adult family members, guardians, healthcare professionals, police, or peace officers to request treatment in order for those who are addicted or whose addiction, or substance use has made them a danger to themselves or others. Eligible individuals will receive assessment, stabilization, and treatment and aftercare support. That's important to understand because we're not talking about like necessarily marijuana. We're talking about fentanyl, we're talking about crack cocaine, we're talking about the hard stuff. And if you understand how the brain works, like the brain takes all the information that our body feeds it and just basically works on the chemical feelings and the little tingles that it gets, and that's how it decides things. And if the information that you are submitting to it from your body to solve its needs, like hunger or, get away from pain, suffering, trauma, all that kind of stuff, is through substance use, your brain is going to seek that to cope, and that's what people usually call emotional coping. Yeah, and it's not the healthy way to do it, and yeah, it's that's why they say it's a complex thing. It's hard because these drugs are pretty much like a parasite, and they have taken over the brain and the functioning because the drugs are telling the brain this is the way to solve the problems. The body is telling the brain this is the way to solve the problem. the body and brain are in a symbiotic relationship, and yeah, you know, that relationship is usually the yogis and philosophers consider the mind-body relationship, you know. Alrighty, moving on. So compassionate intervention is just one tool to help someone pursue recovery, which is why other options should be tried before one is considered for compassionate intervention. To receive a care plan through compassionate intervention, an adult must be likely to cause substance harms to themselves or others within a reasonable time due to their substance use or addiction. For youth, the threshold would be slightly lower to allow intervention before the point of imminent danger and life-threatening harm. Because yeah, you know, youth, recovery, brain development, all that kind of stuff, like if you see a 14-year-old who is sticking needles in their arms because they're an addict or smoking fence and you don't do something, you are like seriously neglecting like duty to youth and the care of children because it is a community thing. Like, yeah, there's something to be said about once you're an adult making your own decisions and that kind of stuff, but when you're a kid, like we have a responsibility, right? And yeah. Anyway, the recovery model, which compassionate intervention is a part of, is built on the underlying belief that anyone struggling with mental health or addiction challenges deserves the opportunity to pursue recovery and live a purpose-filled life. No one should be left to overdose repeatedly, harm themselves or others, or potentially die because they have lost the capacity to get help for their substance use or addiction. And that's very important because, like, in my adult life, I'm sure everybody knows what the Fenty lean looks like. You know, the people who are folded over, the people who are laying down face down in the dirt, the people who, in a personal experience I've had, are laying face down wrapped up in plastic tarps and bags. The amount of times that I've had to call like 911 and try to help somebody who I think is just overdosed in my alley face down in a puddle is insane. Guess what hasn't been happening in the last 3 months since this act came in? Haven't been dealing with overdoses. Haven't had fires outside of my place every night. I wouldn't say it was every night, but it was about 3 to 4 times a week easily. And it's just not happening anymore because these people are getting help and not desperate to meet their basic needs of warmth, food, and shelter. Because if you can't meet your basic needs, how are you able to be expected to meet any other needs? You're more worried about where the next meal's going to come from. Okay? And this whole, like, the idea that we would have these in and out centers, this in and out recovery system that we've had for the last decade, is not the solution. It has not worked. It has led to this problem being exacerbated. And why? Because there's always going to be a percentage of bad actors who, even though you're trying to help people, are trying to benefit off of those people. And we are not doing anything to help those people stay away from the bad actors. All we're doing is keeping an in and out cycle of harm. Yes, it did help some people. I will admit that. I'm not going to deny that it helped some people. But just as Alan Watts said, good intention is not necessarily a good idea. You know, Alan Watts references the Crusades. And that's a crazy thing. Think about this. The Crusades were an idea that they needed to cure people of heresy. Or, you know, solve the heresy so that when they died, they would be able to have a good life in heaven. Because this life was temporary, that life was eternal. Good intention, terrible idea. Because what did they do? Well, they tortured people. So good intentions do not always lead to good ideas. And unfortunately, our way that we have been tackling addictions treatment with the in and out kind of systems that we have, a good intention, bad idea. And before I move further on that, I want to move over to Toronto's solution, which is the SASSY harm reduction vending machines. So, walk by Casey House on Huntley Street and you'll see 2 new harm reduction, blah, 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 blah. The machines are available 24 hours a day, will be tidier, weather-resistant way to distribute the same Toronto public health, safer inhabitation, and safer injection supplies that we have been offering to clients and community members since 2014, the last decade. What have I just been talking about? In 2022-2023 fiscal year, Casey Housing distributed all these addiction kits to client and community members. Good, and you know what? That's okay, because if you're actually like doing some face-to-face meetings and talking to people and stuff like that, that's a little bit better than these machines. Because what I'm seeing here is what's the way to determine that you're not having youth getting these? You know, this causes just as much harm as it is solving. And that is the problem with initiatives like this, is while it helps, it also harms. So this harm reduction is a good idea, but it needs to actually reduce harm in all areas, not just the specific areas that make us feel good about ourselves. Because the idea that we're, oh yes, doing something so we can pat ourselves on the back is a chronic problem within the help industry. And the help industry is any industry that is helping people. We do not need people in this industry at all who just want to pat themselves on the back and give us band aid solutions. We need real life saving solutions. Something like this, not something like this. Alrighty. Alrighty, so first of its kind in Canada. And you know what? I'm going to say this. When I was taking my addictions and recovery courses to be the frontline support worker, the main thing that we talked about is usually you want to give people 90 to 180 days for a proper assessment. Because this allows people who have been on hard drugs for years enough time to both dry themselves out and go through the stages of psychosis to the point where they can start tackling the actual needs that are at the root cause of their addiction without having the first and second order effects of the addiction be in the way of those problems. And yeah, once again, stuff like this does not allow for that. Stuff like this keeps them in the cycle of harm. Now, alrighty. Compassionate Intervention Act first of its kind. Safeguards will be built into the compassionate intervention process to ensure an individual's rights are protected. I believe they have a lawyer right now who has about 10 years experience in human rights law looking over this. You'll have to double check that yourself to correct me or not. Legally binding decisions will be made by the Compassionate Intervention Commission, an independent body appointed by the Lieutenant Governor in Council. Treatment may take place in the community or in a secure facility, which is great because that just basically means that they are looking at addressing people's needs at the complex levels. They're not just putting a blanket one-size-fits-all solution into this long-term care. If you're able to be treated in the community around people who care about you, great. If you're somebody who unfortunately is to the point of being a harm to yourself or others due to the addiction and the parasites of addiction taking over your brain, yeah, you might need a more secure facility, and that's okay because that is meeting people where they're at and providing the services that they need. Care will be tailored to individual needs and will focus on addressing substance use, improving overall health and wellness, and building skills necessary to achieve long-term recovery. How are we doing that by leaving these out here? Honestly. Alrighty. Here, robust discharge planning will support the individual to continue the recovery journey beyond the compassionate intervention treatment period. That's important because the one thing that everybody likes to ignore is the unfortunate fact that relapse often happens during times of recovery. So after the 90 to 180 day period, you can't just wipe your hands off of it and say that's done. You need continuing supports for probably up to about 2+ years until people are like really set in their ways and like on for good. In my opinion, that timeline is in my opinion. But yeah, it's important to have treatment, checking, recovery journey beyond just the treatment period. Compassionate Intervention Act will replace and improve upon the Protection of Children Abusing Drugs Act by allowing for longer-term treatment, providing a less complex application process, increasing family involvement. That's really important. You know, a lot of people talk about trauma coming from family. You know, I grew up in group homes, as I said at the start of this, so my stuff's a little bit different. But yeah, increasing family involvement. You know, if we can get the family to be healthier as a unit, generally that becomes the support unit that helps protect against all of this kind of thing. Doesn't help when your parents are the kind who, as I mentioned, use children as pincushions, but yeah, different stories. Alrighty, certain section of the Compassionate Intervention Act came into play effect upon royal assent. Remaining section will come into proclamation. Alrighty. Delivering on compassionate intervention, laying the foundation, Bill 53 fact sheet. Alrighty, zoom this in. Alrighty, Alberta Recovery Model, Compassionate Intervention, a path to recovery. Addiction is an illness that, if left untreated, can worsen and eventually cause a person to lose their ability to make good decisions regarding their health and well-being. 110%. Once again, if you think that somebody who thinks that it's okay to sleep wrapped up in a plastic bag in the middle of the street is able to make healthy choices for themselves and able to navigate how to get proper help with a vending machine, you might, yeah. I don't think you might be the right person for this myself, but I've just lived it and worked in it. Compassionate intervention will allow family members, guardians, healthcare professionals, peace, or police officers to request treatment orders for those whose addictions or substance use has made them a danger to themselves or others. Eligible individuals will receive assessment, stabilization, treatment, and aftercare support. Once again, you see it as soon as you see somebody who's unfortunately using and they start a fire underneath an apartment building and then they fall asleep with that fire going unmonitored and then fall asleep in that fire, light themselves on fire, lose all of their stuff, or end up smoking out everybody in the building, and there's children there, so all these children are being woken up at 3 in the morning because of this, and it's just a bad scenario. The proposed compassionate intervention legislation is made in Alberta strategy will offer a path to treatment and recovery for individuals who cannot help themselves. Eligibility, adults would likely to, yeah, okay, we read some of this. So how it works, you're going to submit your application, yeah, adult family member regarding a healthcare, police, or peace officer completes the application for an individual to be considered for compassionate intervention treatment. Application reviewed. A statutory director and delegate team reviews the application for completeness. So, okay, complete applications are forwarded to the Compassionate Intervention Commission, and an independent body will be responsible for making legally binding decisions. Incomplete applications are rejected with alternative care options provided. I'm not sure if this is just written really badly, but just for completeness, like what are we talking about here, guys? I think this could be rewritten because just making sure it's incomplete applications are rejected with alternative care options provided. Like if you forget to fill something out, like what's going on here? I would just say reviews applications for acceptability into assessment determination. This here, this step, this is a bureaucratic step that could be 110% removed, by the way, guys. We can just have this at the time of application, and we can have so assessment determination, an independent commissioner member lawyer reviews the application and determines if an individual meets criteria for up to 72-hour assessment period. We've had a 72-hour assessment period. If criteria are met, the lawyer commission member issues an apprehension order and an assessment order. If not, the application is dismissed and the applicant will be provided with information on alternative care options. And yeah, that's okay. Apprehension and conveyance. Police locate and transport the patient to a compassionate intervention center for assessment. Police can transfer patient care to peace officers for conveyance. Assessment and detox. Patients are under the care of a treatment team. They receive medical withdrawal support and or initial stabilization, as well as screening, physical examinations, and other assessments to determine the risk factors associated with the substance use, addiction, and overall health and wellness. Oh wow, look, I was even talking about that kind of stuff, wasn't it? You gotta get all that stuff. Already, information gathered. The statutory director and delegated team compiles supporting documentation. This includes the treatment team's assessment findings as well as any additional information such as police records, health records, and impact statements. Commission hearing. A 3-person commission panel, lawyer, physician, and member of the public, reviews the information to determine if the patient is eligible for a care plan. Participants, commission members, the patient, the statutory director, the medical director, legal counsel / advocate if requested, the guardian if applicable, and family members' impact statements. If criteria are met, a care plan is issued. If not, the patient is discharged with support referrals. Treatment. 2 types of care plans. Secure care plan, up to 3 months of treatment in a compassionate intervention center, 90 days. I believe I mentioned 90 days. Community-based care plan, up to 6 months of treatment in a community-based setting. Wow, 180 days. Look at that. Care plans can be renewed or amended if a patient continues to meet criteria. Perfect. So if somebody needs more help, they're going to offer more help. Cool. Look at that. What does this do again? Oh yeah, nothing. Yeah. Aftercare. Every patient leaves the compassionate intervention system with a discharge plan for ongoing supports and services. This may include continuing treatment in a recovery community or another community bed-based program, day programming, psychiatric care, and or ongoing work with a recovery coach. It may also include help to find housing, employment, skills training, and more. Look at this, we have the roles. Basically, this is great because this determines like what people are supposed to do in response to this. This is the things that you do. So this is from our current premier, Daniel Smith. For those suffering from addiction, there are two paths. They can let their addiction destroy and take their life, or they can enter recovery. There is no compassion in leaving people suffer in the throes of addiction, and in Alberta, we choose recovery. That's why we're introducing compassionate intervention, another tool in the Alberta recovery model to help keep our communities safe while ensuring the most vulnerable can access much needed recovery supports. Again, Daniel Smith, Premier of Alberta. We cannot and will not stand by and let addiction destroy our families and communities. The Compassionate Intervention Act will provide life-saving support, ensuring families are no longer forced to watch their loved ones suffer from the deadly disease of addiction and endure the pain that it brings. Dan Williams, the Minister of Health and Addictions. That's the other gentleman other than Jason Nixon who I was mentioned. Yeah, so now that we've addressed all of that, let's go back to the sassy harm reduction vending machines. And I gotta ask, how much does this help? How much does this harm? What's the pros and the cons? What's the long-term effects? And is this solving the problem? Or is this just giving those involved a nice little pat on the back and making them feel good about themselves? Because in my opinion, we don't need a sassy harm reduction vending machine. We need to get people help, and we need to save some lives. Alright guys, I go by Weeb Hunter. If you like what you saw, give me a like, give me a follow, give me a sub. Hope all of you have a great day. Hard topic. I'm out.